Hello and good afternoon. My name is Anusha Nigam.
I'm Mani Tawari. Today we're going to be presenting about cyberbiosecurity, or safeguarding biological data systems in the digital age. So a little introduction. Digital dependency in biological fields. As more biological fields are getting dependent on technology, every new discoveries are being made. And naturally, as a result, more things are getting streamlined online, and there's a growing cyber threat to this network. In order for sensitive data to be protected, there is an increased need to bolster cybersecurity, or the online cyberbiosecurity, or the online security of biological facilities. Just in 2024 alone, there was over 734 healthcare data breaches affecting 500 or more individuals, and with the largest data breach in the United States affecting around 280 million people. This is the largest data breach in the United States online. So some key terms that I'd like to go over is cyberbiosecurity, as I mentioned. It is the online security of biological systems. The second one is synthetic biology, which is the creation of biological tools online. Then there's bioinformatics, which is the computational analysis of biological records used to describe or predict models. And then the last one is biological data security, which is the protection of any assets related to biological systems, both physical and digital. So digital transformation in life sciences. There's been rapid change over the past decade in terms of how people have created different types of technologies related to discoveries in biological labs or healthcare hospitals. So many tasks that were once performed by people are now automated, leading to a convergence of physical work in labs and the digital input. So these are vulnerable as a result of the infrastructure not readily equipped to handle these malicious attacks. This not only leads to sensitive information being exposed, but it can also affect the treatment of patients. What we know so far is that highly sensitive information is at risk. That's number one. And then to be specific, DNA sequencing, for example, can be done online. And then if some attacker is changing that up, that can lead to cancerous cells or just a change in the genomics of the cells. And then in healthcare systems, there have been many data breaches, as I've mentioned previously, in the past decade. And it's been increasing in the past 5 years alone. So this is demonstrating the need for improvements in cyberbiosecurity. A few gaps that we've highlighted through our study, our primitive study, is a critical gap in awareness of people in these life science sectors and security sectors, digital security sectors. And second is lack of tailored defense mechanisms online. Then we have risks from malicious attackers. Then we have absence of an overall unified framework, meaning that there's a noticeable absence of widespread integration between, again, people knowledgeable in security and scientists. And then finally, we were saying that there's a need for bigger improvements in this infrastructure.
Okay, thank you so much, Manya. I'm going to start in the methodology. So we realized that we needed to understand how prepared we were against cyber threats against our biological system. So we knew we needed a research design that was both broad and deep. That's why we decided to use an approach that combined human insight with numbers. Our work was primarily talking to people, so we decided to use a mixed methods approach, which included surveying and talking to people or like interviewing them. And so we ended up interviewing cybersecurity experts, healthcare professionals, and researchers. And we used their interviews to assess how aware different people are about the growing risks of cyberbiosecurity. For example, we asked them questions like if they had ever experienced like ransomware attacks on genomic databases, especially in the healthcare sector. We also used quantitative analysis to look at patterns, and we found that the healthcare sector was the least aware about the risks. And through the interviews, we found how separated cybersecurity and healthcare are because the biologists don't understand the risks of cyberbiosecurity, and the cybersecurity professionals don't understand how biological systems work. Most importantly, we made sure that our study followed strict ethical protocol, and we made sure that all of our participants consented to their interviews. We used this methodology to give us a grasp of where gaps in understanding were and how we wanted to fix it. After analyzing the data from interviews and surveys, we identified 4 key findings that help us understand exactly the level of preparedness different sectors were at for the cyberbiosecurity threats. We first realized that our pilot study shows that our respondents didn't have much awareness of specific cyberbiosecurity related issues. Our very first finding was that many healthcare professionals don't have resources or time to focus on the risks to their databases and labs. We also understood that biotech and healthcare professionals were focused on physical safety and HIPAA compliance because they had little bandwidth for securing their lab tech that can come under cyber attack or be misused as a biological weapon. Third, we found that cybersecurity frameworks like NIST CSF or ISO 27001 were not always helpful for specific healthcare and biohazard scenarios, so the unique nature of tools like DNA sequencing meant that they required biospecific cybersecurity solutions. Our last one was that many respondents cited internal barriers such as lack of funding and poor coordination between research and IT departments, so the communication gaps prevented essential security improvements despite knowing the risks. Our proposed framework was that cyberbiosecurity represents one of the most pressing problems of modern security, as biological systems and digital infrastructure have become tightly interwoven. The proposed framework responds to this challenge, and we did that by focusing on a few core pillars. Specialized threat intelligence recognizes that standard cyber monitoring misses key risks in labs, so the framework added biospecific indicators so emerging attack surfaces aren't overlooked. Our cross-sector collaboration was one of the most vital parts. The complexity of the hybrid threats required partnerships between scientific researchers, cybersecurity professionals, defense organizations, and regulatory bodies. This cooperation allowed for shared intelligence and reduced blind spots. Finally, our interdisciplinary training programs ensured that people are prepared. By creating a workforce fluent in both digital and biological security practices, the framework built sustainable reliance. Together, these pillars formed a cohesive roadmap to safeguard critical biological research and innovation from evolving cyber threats. Our first recommendation we found was that first off, cyberbiosecurity is a national security issue as more of our critical biological infrastructure, such as vaccine production systems, become digital. They also become potential targets for hostile cyber operations. It isn't just about data loss. These attacks could be used for measures such as bioterrorism. Second, we recommend that cyberbiosecurity be fully integrated into cyber warfare doctrines. Right now, there's a gap. Defense planning often focuses on digital infrastructure or battlefield systems, but doesn't include synthetic biology threat models. This is a gap that we can't really afford. Third, we must prioritize protection of biological critical infrastructure, including healthcare networks and biotech labs. These are now high-value national assets, and a single breach in a genomics database could compromise entire population health records. As of right now, we have no unified policy framework for cyber biosecurity. Standards like ISO or NIST are helpful, but they're too generic, and traditional biosecurity policies don't account for digital threats. We recommend creating sector-specific standards that specifically control cyber risks in genomics and health data systems. Together, these recommendations offer a path forward, one that elevates cyber biosecurity from a niche concept to a central pillar of national defense planning. To conclude, these are the three core takeaways we had from our study, which is a work in progress as of right now. But I'm going to show what we learned, why it matters, and what we're going to do next. So as biological systems become increasingly digital, such as gene sequencing and automated labs, they also become more exposed. Our study showed that or suggested that the biotech, healthcare, and cybersecurity sectors are unprepared for the types of hybrid threats that could emerge. Tailored cyber defense isn't just important, it's critical. Second, resilience requires collaboration. Cybersecurity teams, life science researchers, public health systems, and defense professionals should work together. We recommend cross-disciplinary frameworks and operational partnerships to respond to hybrid threats. They shouldn't have to do this alone or separately. Lastly, our research suggests or supports the long-term goal of securing the bioeconomy, which includes everything from vaccine development to synthetic biology. We offer a framework for identifying vulnerabilities at the cyber-biological interface. These insights help protect not only national security, but also public health and scientific innovation. Cyber biosecurity is no longer a future risk, it's a current one. The time to act is now, and this research gives us a foundation to do so together. Thank you so much for your attention.
Because they are recording the presentation. So it's audio recording, not just, it's audio recording, so I know you might think you talk long enough.
My question was, you mentioned that you did a lot of interviews for this, and it was with either the health professionals, and you mentioned that there wasn't a good dialogue between them and their IT departments. My daughter, for instance, does DNA research at UGA, and she had it sent out to the Savannah River site. But it's traversing out there. It could be interrupted and changed in the middle of it. But she just assumes that the IT department's taking care of that. So, did you talk to the IT professionals as well in your research at all?
I don't. Yeah. So. This is ongoing work, and we have two sides of the audience. One is the computer experts or IT professionals, and other are the bio, doctors, lab, those kind of professionals. So, and your rest of the part I'll answer from experience. I have worked as a chief information security officer before I became a professor. So it's not about the communication in this context, it's about the opportunity. Everybody normally goes about their day job. And the day job of a bioscientist or a doctor or a researcher, in the context, the typical interaction is, suppose they forget their password. Then they interact. They know how to interact with the IT department. But to make their day job better in the context of the securing their research or securing their active bacteria or culture in their lab, for that they do not have any day-to-day, you can say, routine or opportunity. So they just remain in silos. That's the situation. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So I'm an Army Inspector General, and I actually go out and inspect chemical and biological sites, laboratories that do either bio or chemical type systems or laboratory work. One of the things that we've seen, and I'm wondering if you're seeing it, is it more of a culture issue? Because from what we saw, you have lab technicians. They're in there to do their job. They don't want to be hindered or have their work hampered by having to worry about a username and password every time they need to get into either mass spectrometer, or other lab-specific device. So as you were interviewing the laboratorians, did you find that that's kind of what they saw, is that it was cyber-securing their systems was a hindrance to their job, and that was causing some of the issue?
Yes, one part is the hindrance, and the other part is misaligned incentive. If you have an employee who is either a researcher or let's say a mechanic or anybody, if their incentive is aligned, their promotion depends on some output, let's say writing 1,000 lines of code or discovering a drug, then this is definitely a distraction to their either financial goal or career goal, or let's say they're driven by patriotism. Then they see their main job is the only job. But from the top down, the culture and the incentives need to be aligned. Let's say you have some, as I was walking in the hallway, I just picked up a pamphlet and it says that, I think it was some US Army pamphlet, which says that they have 10 promotion points if they do some cybersecurity certification, right? I think there's a pamphlet there. So see, that type of thing is needed. Now, whoever is this army soldier or officer, they are not doing cybersecurity just out of their, I mean, it's good if they're doing out of their own, conscience, but now army made it clear. You do this security certification, you get 10 points, you get promoted. Now, such person doesn't see it as any distraction. I mean, they're happy doing this cybersecurity certification, which helps them get promoted. So this army has created this great example. I'll show you, right? It's right here in this flyer. And this is the only flyer I have picked up today. And this is a great example. If every job of a doctor or a physicist or anyone, it says that if you do good cybersecurity, you get 10 points for your promotion. Cybersecurity of the whole world will improve just by following this flyer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, part of the issue too that we saw was the lab systems probably 5, 6, 7 years ago really didn't have any cybersecurity requirements on them, at least from an Army standpoint.
Yes.
So it was kind of like a deer in the headlights when we started looking at them and asking not just the IT folks, what are you doing to make sure that these systems are protected, but also asking the people in the labs, what are you doing to ensure when you're protecting things like your username and password? We continually find on common systems, the username and password that is post-it notes on there. And we understand why, but there are good ways to do this and there are bad ways. And it's just trying to help the culture understand it. What you kind of, you indicate there is a way to incentivize
That's one way to
the
do
workforce to try and hopefully get them to do it. I think it's just going to take a gradual culture change, but I was curious if that's what you were seeing
It's
in your
true that,
research.
it's a little bit touchy with how much we should know about each other's systems too.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the lab that I was at, they had 4 different walls to put their password and then to log into their computer and then to the online and to Google and then and it's they had to do that every time they had to use a machine. So there's that type of cybersecurity, and then there's also the post-it note on the wall, right? So then just trying to figure out a sweet spot between how much is good enough is also really important to.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you probably didn't go in any Army labs, but biosafety
No,
level.
we didn't go to any army.
Biosafety level 3 and 4, where you're wearing a full environmental suit. I have seen some really good, have been in some really good labs with some good practices for the Army, because we use the CAC for everything to authenticate. I saw some really good practices where they had banks of CAC readers that were secured on the outside of the lab. Because as you know, if you go in with the lab, anything that goes into that lab typically doesn't come back out unless it's sanitized. And then you sanitize the CAC and you ruin it. So I saw good practices where they were able to put it in there, and then it was tied to a workstation that they were using. They were able to use their PIN. So there are some good practices out there. It's just a culture that I was seeing. So thank you.
sorry if this is a really basic question, but it kind of alludes
No,
back
no
to,
question is a bad question.
to what Michael was talking about. I'm a pure IT guy. How does a biosystem differ from a OT system or a regular application trying to reach the internet? And how does what you're bringing up differentiate from other industries pushing to secure OT systems?
Yes, there is a key difference. So see, when you're looking at an OT system or any technical system, from a attacker's or adversary's point of view, you can disable the system, you can make the system malfunction, and you can cause disruption or loss of service, which may in extreme case lead to loss of lives if it's a critical system. Even these there are attacks on a water treatment plants, right? But why even there is a word, why we are calling it biosecurity, we could just call it cybersecurity, because there's a difference. Because some of these facilities, depending on what is that biological, that content in it, not only a cyber attacker can, let's say, disable the lab or make the lab or steal data, but that is least of the problems, right? 25 years ago, when you saw a Boeing flying above your head, what do you saw? You saw an aircraft. You saw a civilian airliner. Now you see that as a potential weapon because things have changed. Because a civilian airliner was misused in a horrible ways. So in case of these biolabs, an adversary or attacker can manipulate or spread, let's say something like a COVID, out of a lab. And that is a bigger threat than, let's say, just stealing some IP from the lab. So now that threat modeling of the lab should take this as a very high priority, that a disease or germ or is not used like a bio or chemical weapon for a mass killing. So that's the difference, why the biolab security is more critical than, let's say, other kind of industries.
So from a technical perspective, it just seems like the risk is higher, but
Much higher.
From the
But it
technical
depends. See, if the bio is a very generic word. Some of the labs may have some sensitive, let's say, bacteria or virus, and some don't. So depends on what it is. For all we know, COVID could be a biological weapon, for example.
Okay, thank you.
I had the exact same question as you, but I wanted to add a little bit to the question. Say, for example, from an IT perspective, we have a set of tools. We have a set of techniques and methods to defend the system. Say the system is attached to a nuclear power plant, or a system is attached to your lab or biosystem that you're talking about. We, from a technical perspective, have the same set of tools to defend the systems.
Yes.
That's why I'm trying to see, like, why should we pay more attention to this than like industrial control system or other systems? Thank you.
Yes, I would like to give you an example. Right? Have you seen a personal security guard, like a bodyguard? Right? There may be some important people right now in this event who are protected, who may be protected by visible security detail. Right? I worked at Uber before my professor career. Uber hired former Secret Service detail members to protect its CEO. Right? Now, when you are protecting somebody very important, and I'm not saying, see, all lives are equal, me and you are important, etc. But who is protected at a highest level? It's typically head of state, for example. So you can say all bodyguards are equal. Every person's protection uses the same principle, right? You need to protect a person through a bodyguard, through a perimeter, through some weapons, through some screening, background check, badges, who is around. But if there was that level of, if there are a head of state in this building, then principles will remain the same. But the implementation will be like 100 times higher than how we are sitting here coolly. So while you see, everything in cybersecurity boils down to confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But when you are protecting a nuclear weapon or a head of state or something very important, then the stakes are very high. And because of the methodology and the budget and the implementation and the seriousness, it's not the same. So back to the IT world, protecting every server or every data center is not equal. Protecting nuclear weapons is of highest importance. I'm teaching a new course this fall where my case study is command and control of nuclear weapons, because that's the highest, one of the strongest things to protect. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.